Welcome. This is another Khan Academy support video. Specifically, we're going to be looking at the second assignment this week, the one that says complete solutions to two variable equations. As a quick reminder, I'm going to put the whiteboard back into full screen here. As a quick reminder, a solution for us is a pair of values for x and y that makes the equation a true statement. Whenever you have an ordered pair, parentheses with two numbers separated by a comma, the first number represents the x value, the second number represents the y value. And we talk about equations with an x and a y in them. A solution is the pair of values you can plug in for x and y that would make the equation a true statement. As we started to talk about a little bit in the first assignment, these linear equations that have two variables, an x and a y, they often have lots and lots of solutions to them. The first equation we're going to consider here says y equals 3x minus 7. So we see it's one of those two variable equations. I'm going to make the whiteboard slightly larger. And the equation I'm going to be writing down or considering says y equals 3x minus 7. And for this equation, they want us to complete the missing value in the solution to the equation. So we see this ordered pair right here that says 1 in the first number, comma, and a blank number in the second. So at the bottom of this whiteboard, I'm going to go ahead and write an ordered pair that says 1, comma, and a blank spot, because that's really what we're trying to figure out here. So what they're telling us here, really, they're saying find the solution to this equation when the x is equal to 1. They're saying if x is equal to 1, what value for y would we need in this equation? So to find that, I'm going to go ahead and replace the x with 1 in this equation. Y equals 3 times 1 minus 7. So all I did here, they gave me half of the solution here. They told me x had to be 1. They said, what could the y be? So I replaced the x with 1 in my equation. Now the only variable left is y. I'm going to solve for that y, figure out what y needs to be if we make x equal to 1 in this equation. First thing I'll do, 3 times 1 gives us 3, so this equation simplifies to say y will be equal in value to 3 minus 7. 3 minus 7 gives us negative 4 when we do that math. So that tells me if I were to make x equal to 1, this equation says y needs to be equal to negative 4. So again, these linear equations with x and a y have lots of pairs of solutions that work. If they ask you to complete a solution, they give you half of the solution, you need to plug that half in and use the equation to determine the other half. That one was correct. We're not going to disappear the whiteboard. We'll just keep moving into the second question now. So here, our second equation, let me erase my work on my whiteboard. The second equation says 2x plus 3y, 2 times x plus 3 times y needs to be equal in value to 12. And here, the solution set that they list says blank, comma, 8. Or in other words, they're saying we don't know what x is yet. I'm going to leave that blank. But we know that y needs to be 8 for the solution we're looking for. So in that case, if I want to determine the x, I'm going to replace the y with 8. So the equation becomes 2 times x plus 3 times 8 needs to be equal to 12. At that point, I would then do the math of 3 times 8, simplify that. 3 times 8 gives me 24, so we get 2x plus 24 is equal to 12. Now, those two-step equations we solved a couple weeks ago, now they become very helpful for you. So if you're going to solve for x, remember we need to get the x all by itself. So in this case, we're going to start, lo and behold, peeling the onion. I'm going to subtract 24 to get rid of the positive 24. And that tells me 2 times x needs to be equal to negative 12 in value. And then I'll divide both sides of the equation by 2, because that's the opposite of multiplying by 2. That cancels out the multiplication with 2. That tells me x needs to be equal to negative 6 if indeed we had made y equal to 8. So here they told us to make y equal to 8. I plugged that 8 in for my y. I then solved the equation for x. We had to use inverse operations towards the end to get that x by itself, but then it tells us x needs to be equal to -6 if you were to make y equal to 8. So that's one possible solution to that equation. You could make x -6, you could make y 8, and that would work in the equation. Quickly, we could also check that. If I plug a -6 in for 2, 2 times -6 would give me -12. And if I plugged in that 8 for y, 3 times 8 would give me +24. And 24 minus 12 does indeed equal the 12 it's supposed to. So now I'm more confident. Once I plugged the -6 for x, the 8 in for y, I saw they worked in the equation. That's one way to make sure your work is correct. We're going to show one more example, but again, the key for all of them in this assignment here, if they give you half of the solution, you need to plug that half into your equation to find the other the other value for that solution. Here our equation says y minus 4 needs to be equal in value to -2 times x plus 3. And for the proposed solution, they say x is going to be -3. And they want us to figure out what would y have to be if x were -3. So I'm going to take that -3 and I'm going to plug it into this equation. I don't know y yet, so the left side still stays at y minus 4. On the right side of the equation, now it says -2 multiplied with x gets replaced by -3. So the parentheses change from x plus 3 to -3 plus 3. Now I'm going to solve for y. I'm going to start doing order of operations. Over here on the right side, I know -3 plus 3 makes nothing. And I know -2 times 0, I know 0 times anything is going to give me 0. So this equation, when I plugged in a -3 for x, the right side simplifies down to make 0. The left side says y minus 4 still. I haven't changed that at all. And if I don't know what number -4 is equal to 0, I could add 4 to cancel out the -4. And that tells me what some of you are already yelling at home. You said, Mr. Doherty, if y minus 4 equals 0, then y must be 4, because 4 minus 4 is what would produce 0. So ultimately, if I replace that x with -3 as this problem told me, I figure out that this equation needs a y value of 4 if the x value is set at -3. As always, if you have questions when you're working through this, the first thing I would encourage you to do when you check those answers if they are wrong is to use that Get Help button or to watch Sal Khan's videos. If you're still stuck, if this video wasn't super helpful, feel free to send me an email and I'm happy to jump on Google Meet and work with you one-on-one. Thanks for watching to the end of the video. Keep up the great work.